Well, you've made it this far. You've established critical infrastructure to support life on Mars. You've transported brave pioneers to an alien world. You've even managed to guide a fledgling Martian culture. But now what? What's the end game? Oh, I am so glad you asked. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Provis, and in this final tutorial for Surviving Mars Relaunched, we're going to explore the loftiest and grandest ambitions for this planet. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started. Humanity has dreamt of a lush green Mars, a second Earth, if you will, for as long as I can remember. And ever since the Green Planet DLC was released for the original Surviving Mars, terraforming the planet was considered the endgame goal. And even though Relaunched has some new endgame options, I think most players will agree that transforming the planet into a new paradise is one of the most satisfying pursuits you'll ever experience. So we're going to cover that first. As you might expect, altering the fundamental makeup of a planet's environment is a delicate and time-consuming process. In Surviving Mars, there are 4 surface conditions you can manipulate, ultimately leading to a more stable and habitable planet. You can do this through a variety of powerful but very expensive buildings, and over time the fruits of your labor will become apparent. To access these buildings, it's time to finally start researching from the terraforming column in the research menu. The first thing you'll want to do is increase the overall global surface temperature of Mars. Currently, the planet cannot support liquid water and is prone to cold waves or spots of permafrost. By pumping massive amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, you'll see the temperature parameter slowly tick up. Or alternatively, for a hefty price, we could build a core heat convector and use our water to start heating the core of the planet. At 25% temperature, the permafrosts will start to melt and liquid water will be viable, which we'll come back to in just a minute. But even better, if you're on a map with severe cold waves, the higher your temperature rating is, the shorter and less impactful those cold waves will be. At 50% temperature, the cold waves will go away entirely. Now, while you increase the temperature, you can also start building up a proper breathable atmosphere. This is especially tricky on Mars because the planet does not have a magnetic field like Earth does, and thus is prone to losing atmospheric pressure over time. To start off, we'll place a carbonate processor, which will begin crushing and burning all that waste rock we've been storing up from our mining operations, and it will release the gases. This will cost a ton of concrete and power, fair warning. And even once we build up a rudimentary 23% atmosphere, you'll find that the planet will start shedding its gases. You can power through that loss by building more processors, or you can build magnetic field generators or launch magnetic satellites to reduce the atmosphere loss. Just be warned, the huge magnetic forces will have a tendency to impact the Martian tectonic plates, and a Marsquake is a real possibility. The atmosphere is especially rewarding, though. Not only will dust storms and dust devils be less impactful, but eventually the atmosphere can even protect you from meteor storms. Plus, you'll get more value out of your wind turbines and Moxies. The only downside is that solar power will become a smidge less effective. Now combine enough atmosphere and temperature together, and you'll even find rainfall becomes a possibility. I mean, sure, it's toxic and horrible for your buildings, but don't despair. Keep investing in building up that atmosphere, temperature, and water level, and eventually the toxic rains will give way to clean, fresh rainfall. You'll even be able to crack open your domes and breathe the clean air once you reach a 95% atmosphere rating. Now, speaking of water, we want to increase the moisture levels in the surface and in the air. Your most reliable source of water is going to be digging out some massive lakes on the surface and then dumping literal tons of water into them. This is, again, an expensive and slow process, but a few dozen man-made lakes will make a world of difference, passively building up that water rating. The big downside is that water does evaporate, and the lakes will slowly drop their water level, so you'll need to keep them topped off. Think of it as a water maintenance cost. But on the plus side, your moisture vaporators will become more and more efficient, since there will be plenty of water to scrub from the air. Plus, you obviously will need water to grow any actual vegetation on the planet. Speaking of which, this is our fourth and final metric for terraforming the planet. With sufficient temperature and water, you'll be able to introduce simple lichens, then grasses, then bushes, and finally, trees. Now, the planet is truly going green. You can plant your, well, plants by using the forestation plant and a resource we haven't covered up to this point: seeds. Now, these can be imported from Earth or eventually grown inside your own dome farms. What's the benefit of spreading vegetation across the surface? Well, mainly it increases something called soil quality. If you add enough nutrients and biomass into the soil, you'll be able to start placing massive out-of-dome farms that will solve your food needs for the rest of the game. Seriously, these things make your in-dome farms look like kindergarten toys. There's just no comparison. Plus, you can't deny the satisfaction of taking a dead, barren world like Mars and breathing life into the planet. So, to recap, raise the temperature and atmosphere first to reduce or eliminate the natural disasters that have been plaguing you for years. Then, once the waters melt, dig out and fill lakes to build up that moisture level. And finally, once all the conditions are right, plant your seeds and watch Mars spring to life. A new paradise awaits. But terraforming is only one of many endgame goals we can pursue. Let's turn our attention away from the surface of Mars and dig a little deeper. As you explore the surface of Mars, you undoubtedly will come across a massive chasm leading to the underground. This is a whole new map in surviving Mars, with more resources and anomalies to explore, but to access it, you'll need to build an elevator. This can be found very early in the Recon and Expansion column in the research menu. Once built and supplied with power, you can send your drones and rovers under the planet's crust to explore a vast network of tunnels and lava tubes. As you might expect, there is no natural light down here, so build some lights to see what you're doing. The tunnels themselves are filled with rocky debris, and it will be slow going traversing the dark depths. An RC dozer is especially valuable down here, since they specialize in digging up rock and clearing large areas. But what can you expect to find? Well, as I said, there are usually quite a few anomalies to discover, which can lead to big bursts in science or technological breakthroughs. It's also pretty common to find metals or rare earth metals, which will fund your economy on the surface. You might even find a mysterious cave of wonders, but I'll let you discover that for yourself. Now, in case you were wondering, yes, you can send your colonists down here. But it's tricky. Obviously, you can't get any solar or wind power down in the underground, so you'll be relying on small Stirling generators or fusion power plants just to keep the lights on. The rest of your life support works the same way as it does on the surface, though, so I know you can adapt. One recommendation: deep in the Recon Tech column, you'll find an opportunity called Underground Flight School. This will let you build shuttles in the underground to navigate the lava tubes far, far faster than any other vehicle. I highly recommend you wait until you have those shuttles before trying to build any domes down here. Otherwise, transporting colonists will be very, well, tedious. But suppose the surface and depths of Mars aren't enough for you. Then turn your eyes to the heavens. There's even more that we can explore in space. Early in the Recon Tech column, you'll find a technology for a recon center, effectively a giant telescope that scans the immediate vicinity of Mars's orbit. Every once in a while, your recon center will report an approaching asteroid that will very temporarily be within range of Mars. If you're feeling very bold, you could consider launching a mining expedition to gather up a trove of new resources to fuel your economy. This will take a lot of preparation and a lot of research. Firstly, you'll need a new type of rocket called the Asteroid lander, which is specialized for these types of short-range missions. Then you'll need to fill up your lander with some basic resources: concrete, metals, polymers, you know the drill, and some drones. Plan on building a handful of solar panels, batteries, and special microgravity mining extractors to gather up the metals and rare metals on the asteroid's surface. But be warned, if you don't have a source of water on the asteroid that you can convert into fuel, then make sure you bring enough fuel for your return journey. The asteroid will not stick around forever. Eventually, it will fly out of Mars's range, and if you did not evacuate in time, you can say goodbye to that lander, drones, and any colonists you might have been crazy enough to send up there. Trust me, I know from experience, this hurts you right in the gut. There is one really important reason to go up to these asteroids, though, besides the obvious treasure of rare metals. You see, these asteroids have been drifting for millions or billions of years in the void of space, traveling unfathomable distances. Who knows what alien, rarely seen elements are waiting to be discovered? And this takes us to the last resource that we've never addressed in these tutorials: exotic minerals. These can only be obtained from asteroids, but have a wide variety of applications. Not only will you need these minerals for a lot of important underground structures, but you can use them to enhance your solar panels and medical stations on the surface, dramatically improving their efficiency. You could also extend the reach of your drone hubs, allowing your drones to reach new areas where a regular hub wouldn't make much sense. Do you strictly need these materials to enjoy the endgame? No. Is it a fun challenge? Absolutely. And speaking of fun challenges, there's something very important we haven't talked about yet in these videos, something you might already have encountered, or if not, you're about to. Remember during game setup at the beginning of our first tutorial, we had a selection menu just for mysteries? These are in-game storylines that usually provide some sort of challenge or imminent danger that you will need to address during your game. Typically, these mysteries will only trigger once you have about 100 colonists, though some require even more. And what actually happens during that mystery? Well, it depends on the mystery itself. On the easier levels, you might have a mystery that requires some dedicated research and uncovering strange alien artifacts. In others, you'll need to build rockets and send resources back to Earth to relieve a war or plague. Still others might pit you against forces or life forms that we can barely comprehend, but I don't want to spoil too much. Suffice it to say, once you have 100 colonists on Mars, start stocking up on resources and make sure your economy and culture are stable. These might get tested very soon. The good news is, most of these mysteries have unique, powerful rewards if you can survive them, usually in the form of new breakthrough technologies or wonders that could drastically improve your colony. Just keep calm, follow the objectives, and you'll be fine. I mean, unless you chose one of the hard mysteries, then you might be in trouble, but I'm sure you wouldn't do that. Would you? And now, for the new endgame goal in Surviving Mars Relaunched, a completely new ambition that we've all been eagerly anticipating: true independence from Earth. Gone are the days when you were a fledgling colony entirely dependent on your sponsors back home. Now you are a true power in the solar system, a unique offshoot of human evolution with the power to stand on its own. It's time to walk alone. Now, Surviving Mars is not a military game. You won't be training an army or building a navy to ward off the Terrans. Instead, independence is more about unifying your people under a new identity through various political laws and satisfying the different factions in your domes, and then declaring your intentions to the powers of Earth. Be warned, your sponsor will not be happy. They've invested a great deal of time and money into your survival, but they can't exactly force you to remain with them. I mean, after all, Mars is very, very far away. Instead, they'll apply pressure to you by withholding resources, technology, and new colonists. But once they pass through the first stage of grief, they'll be open to negotiation. To recoup their losses, they'll want to start a second loyal colony on Mars. If you can supply resources to that colony, or just stockpile monumental amounts of cash, you can effectively buy your freedom, and your sponsor will recognize you as a new sovereign power. Initially, the loss of your sponsor is going to hurt, but fortunately, securing your independence will open up new goals and technologies that will help your colony to adapt to offset these penalties. This will take a lot of work, but in the end, you'll come out stronger for it, albeit with significantly reduced trade opportunities. I absolutely think every player should make this their new end goal, right alongside terraforming. But take your time, don't rush. It will take a few generations of Martians for their new identity to develop, and you've got your hands full just surviving. Once survival is no longer a question, then assert yourself and open a new chapter in the story of humanity. Folks, we've covered a lot of ground in these tutorial videos, and believe it or not, there's still far, far more that I didn't have time to cover. From crop rotations to intercolony trade to planetary anomalies to breakthrough technologies to massive wonders like space elevators and moleholes. There's just so much to explore on Mars. But rest assured, I've provided you with all the tools you need to thrive. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how you'll adapt to these new challenges and create a new home for humanity now that you have survived Mars.